Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Ride. Hey, I just like to thank everybody once again for tuning in. We're almost to the end of the regular season. My guest, Ty Floyd, will join me in a moment, but y'all know, everybody make sure that you hit that like button early and often, and if you have not subscribed, make sure you do that as well. So, everybody knows what time it is. It is time to fire it up. The big one in Jackson. And this was a game that was very hard hitting the whole way. Jackson State comes to Montgomery, pulls out a 16-10 win, and in the process, clinching the SWAC East title for the third time in 4 seasons. Jacoby and Morgan, 8 of 13 on this game. Not much in the way of passing. He was kind of harassed a lot, but he made the key plays with 2 touchdown passes to Dupree and Gardner. Irv Mulligan, he had 57 yards rushing on this day, which was a very well testament to Alabama State's defense. On the day, Daquan Kinsey, 13 rushes, 144 yards. He had a key touchdown run that cut the deficit from 14-3 to 14-10. But Kareem Key struggled all day, could only muster 4 yards passing and also 2 big turnovers. Jackson State, they get it done on the road. Now, something that happened after the game, we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But for now, Jackson State, they head on the road again for the Soul Bowl at Alcorn State. Alabama State, they close out the SWAC portion of their schedule with Prairie View at home. In Baton Rouge, Southern Jaguars, they took on UAPB, coming away with a 31-9 win. In the process, they clinched the SWAC West for the second time in 3 seasons. Jalen Woods got the start in this one, 202 yards passing and a touchdown. Kobe Dillon and Kendrick Grimes, a touchdown run each as they run to a 31-9 victory. Makai Hagans struggled on this day, harassed a lot in the pocket, didn't even finish this game. Javani Gibson, 10 hard catches for 85 yards. Oh, UAPB is struggling to the finish as they now complete the rest of their schedule next week at home against Texas Southern. Now Southern, they get a bye week, and then they go to the Bayou Classic. And also in this one, the video's going around with Big Willie Miles. Shout out to Big Willie Miles of Southern for getting a big man touchdown at the end of this game. Hey, Swagoo, get him on big man balling tomorrow. He deserves it. Now, in the process, that sets up the SWAC championship game, which goes down on Saturday, December the 7th, 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to take place between Southern and Jackson State in Jackson. But both teams, they got a little bit of business to take care of before that. We'll talk about this one a little bit later, folks. And also, their opponent will be the South Carolina State Bulldogs as they go to Baltimore and blast Morgan State 54-7. Now, Eric Phoenix, he had a touchdown pass in this game, but he was forced to leave in the second quarter with a leg injury. Don't worry, they say he's day-to-day. Ryan Stubblefield came off the bench and took over and threw for the same amount of yardage and threw a couple of touchdown passes. In the process, South Carolina State moves to 8-2 overall, and they're going to finish out their regular season schedule for a senior day with Norfolk State. Morgan State struggle all day as both quarterbacks could only throw for 139 yards, and they also rushed for only 78. South Carolina State, big, 54-7, rolling on to the Celebration Bowl for the first time since 2021, in which they won it. And you will see them in the city of Atlanta. And then the shocker in Tallahassee. Who saw this one coming? Well, there was a good amount of people that were on my show on Wednesday that were talking about that they gave Valley a chance in this game. And did they take advantage of it? Tajarian Williams, 251 in the air, 2 touchdowns. Nathan Rimbert, 7 catches, 130 and a touchdown. The Valley Delta Devils snap a 15-game losing streak. And in the process, they snapped the 23-game home winning streak for FAMU. Daniel Richardson came off of a concussion. He didn't quite look himself. And also 3 fumbles lost and a missed field goal contributed to the cause. Shout out to Valley getting a victory. Now Valley takes care of the rest of its schedule next week, hosting my boys, Alabama A&M. FAMU, it's on to Orlando to take on Bethune-Cookman in the Florida Classic. Also, speaking of my boys, Thursday Night Lights, they took care of Grambling 22-17. Quad Brown, 228 in the air and a touchdown. Donovan Eaglin, another 100-yard game with 123 on the ground. And they held Grambling scoreless in the second half. Miles Crawley, coming off an injury, didn't quite look himself, but, you know, the Bulldogs took advantage of everything that came their way. Also, Grambling, 15 penalties and 3 turnovers. For A&M, it's on the Valley. Grambling, you try to get a winning season at 6-6 as you take on your rival in the Bayou Classic after a bye week. And, did you see this pillow fight take place down there in Prairie View? Alcorn State comes away with the win, 26-13. In this game, nobody was able to pass the ball, and people were barely able to run it. But Jacorian Sewell had a 58-yard touchdown run. Tavarius Griffin, he also chipped in with 66 yards rushing. For Prairie View, their one highlight was Kobe Cavill, 75-yard punt return for a touchdown. But that's about it, folks. Alcorn, 6-5 on the year, looks to finish strong with Jackson State coming to town. And for PV, they look to finish at an even 6-6 as they head to Alabama State. And also another game that took place in the SWAC with Texas Southern getting the victory over Bethune-Cookman. Wasn't many people in the stands, and unfortunately probably wasn't that many people that watched it. But if you did, you saw a defensive effort from both sides. Jace Wilson, 170 in the air. Athene Renfro, 22 rushes, 129 and 2 touchdowns. He was the man on the day for Texas Southern as they finished 4-6 and they head to Pine Bluff. For Bethune-Cookman, they look to just end this long season. Hopefully they can finish it off for their sake against FAMU in Orlando. And then also another game that ended in a brawl. Unfortunately, North Carolina Central completely dominates Howard, 26-3. This was played on Friday night. As you can see, Howard 0 for 13 on third down, outgained by over 400 yards. And this despite forcing 3 turnovers and blocking 2 field goals. Walker Harris, solid again with 321 and a touchdown. But this game would belong to Jamari Taylor, 24 rushes, 206 and 3 touchdowns. And he also had 78 yards receiving. North Carolina Central, they need to win this game against Delaware State to give themselves any chance of being selected for the FCS playoffs. For Howard, they finish against Morgan State. And then last but not least on the schedule yesterday, you had Norfolk State getting a win in its home finale over Delaware State. 38-19, outscoring Delaware State 28-6 in that second half. So for Norfolk State, they head to South Carolina State, and Delaware State ends at North Carolina Central. Shout out, though, to Big Worm for managing to get his team into the win column again to end the season. And for Delaware State, they've been fighting uphill all year, but Jaden Sutton is a star that they hopefully can build on for the future. And that is all of the action that we had yesterday. And what a day it was. And I am going to welcome in at this time my co-host, for the evening. Hello, Ty Floyd. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Hey, doing wonderful, doing wonderful. And I do want to go back and I want to start our conversation tonight. I want to start with the big one that took place here in Jackson. All right. Now, Jackson State fans, they were out in mass yesterday. They represented well, but this game was as hard hitting of a game as you're going to see in the SWAC. So, just talk about it from your thoughts here. What do you think about the way this thing went down?
Well, one thing that I can say about Alabama State is that they're a tough team. They're going to come out and hit you in the mouth. If you're not careful, they will dominate you. We've seen it with our guys, unfortunately, at Alabama A&M, but I've also seen it in the past 2 years that they've played my alma mater, Florida A&M, and just how hard they play. Their record doesn't necessarily reflect their talent on the field, but Jackson State, they're such a great team. They're such a well-coached team. I knew with the way that they rallied behind TC Taylor upon the departure of Deion Sanders, how great this team was going to be. Jacobian Morgan, he's great. I mean, Irv Mulligan, he didn't necessarily have the numbers against that tough Alabama State defense, but that doesn't take away from how great that he is. And then on the defensive side, you have guys who are leaders in Isaias Guthrie. So with that being said, it's no surprise to me that they won, but it's also no surprise that the score was how it was, just considering how great Alabama State is as well.
Yeah, and another one guy that really stood out in this game, Robert McDaniel, had 14 tackles, 3 for loss, and a sack. And this game, it was like you thought that Alabama State was going to end up getting blown out. I mean, when it was 14-3, and then Jacobian Morgan fumbles the ball, and then next play, boom, Daquan Kinsey to the house. And, but Alabama State in this one, you look at that, only 4 yards passing. They couldn't get anything going in the pass game. And this is something that I had said in the preview that, they have been playing with fire. And last week, they should have won that game at Grambling, but that is when the lack of a passing game started to catch up to them. And it truly was on display here.
So. Yeah, absolutely. Jackson State secondary, they're great. They've really shown, their talent in defensively, period, but especially in their secondary. And yeah, you have to have all moving parts of your offense established, starting with your offensive line. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch this game, but in the trenches is where it starts. So I'm not sure exactly where the problem is to pinpoint, but I can say when Alabama A&M played them, our defensive line did amazing, specifically Jamarion Ellis, who had 14 tackles in that game. So it's important for Alabama State, if I'm their coaching staff, I'm going to recruit offensive line. I'm also going to recruit some receivers. And I'm also not going to strictly recruit guys out of the portal. I'm going to make sure that we get some high school guys that we can develop. Because if you look at guys like Carson Vincent, for example, going to Alabama A&M and staying, and look at what his loyalty and what his, skill has, what type of opportunities it has created for him. And I think a lot more schools should be looking to do something like that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, we'll talk more about this game here in a little bit because something took place after that we're going to have to talk about. All right. Now, the other side of the SWAC championship equation went down there in Baton Rouge. Now, I want to start off by saying this. I know a lot of people, and Ty, you chime in on this as well. I know a lot of people like to say that the SWAC West was weak. One thing I will say is that Southern, one thing you can't do is you can't control. You can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. And Southern did that every game in the SWAC except for the FAMU game. Now, this was a very impressive performance for them, to say the least, because this was a game that they were never challenged. But as Southern winning this game and now taking its show, well, obviously they still have the Bayou Classic, but taking its show ahead of time to Jackson, what do you think their prospects are to potentially maybe pull one over on folks down there in Jackson?
Honestly, the SWAC is just so competitive. You can't really sit here and say, oh, well, this team is just a for sure shoe-in to beat this team. And I think a lot of times, or I think in this particular instance, that's what people are saying. People think Jackson State is just going to just win, blow them out. I believe it's going to be a dogfight. First of all, it's the championship game, and it's a shot to go to the Celebration Bowl. And of course, the representative that's predicated on other things. But really, the biggest thing is who wins this championship. Who wouldn't? The pressure really is all on Jackson State. The pressure is on them because they're the favorite. They're the ones who are supposed to win. They're the ones that are supposed to go. People are already talking about this rematch with South Carolina State. But if they're not careful and they're complacent, or they just believe that it's going to be some kind of blowout and they don't go into it with the mentality that this is a shootout or this is the most important game of the season or whatever the case is, Southern can and will take the win. So I think it's a 50-50 split, but it just depends on the mentality of both teams.
Yeah, I get you on that. And, I think for Southern, I think one of the things that I say with them, and, I'm going to pull up their schedule here, and you look at just, you look at the way that they, they won the games that were in front of them. I mean, yeah, they won 3 overtime games, one of them going to 5 overtimes, and then we watched it in firsthand when they came to A&M. That was a full 60-minute game. I will say though, these guys, winning these games, that you have to say something for that. And I think that one thing that they're going to have to do as they get ready for this Bayou Classic, well, first they have a bye week and then they're going to have the Bayou Classic. Some of the things that they're going to have to do, they're going to have to really look at a lot of film, and they're going to look at their roster and see, different things and try to just let it all hang out. We've seen 3 different quarterbacks recently. You saw Zay T-Set start against us, and then you saw Jalen Woods do it yesterday. You've also seen Noah Biden. So, they got 3 guys that they've been playing. Now, I know a lot of people from Southern Jaguar Nation, they've been saying, please, not any Noah Biden. Stay away from the field. Just give us Jalen Woods or give us Zay T-Set. But these guys, they just need to, over the next week or so, they just need to get back to basics and just think about what they need to do, right? What up, Teldrin? What he said. He said, what up, chat? He said, SWAC Division chat, Dooley, you on the... yeah, if they let him call the plays, Teldrin, because, Mickey looked real hot when he left Huntsville on Thursday night. All right, so now I have to do this one. All right. FAMU and Valley. All right, take the wheel. You got it. So let's hear from you, your words.
Much to say. I don't really have much to say. No, honestly, I would say that I'm shocked and surprised, but I'm not. I feel like I saw some of the holes in our offense and our defense, specifically with ball security. I remember watching the game against Jackson State and how there was a fumble, which led to a scoop and score where Jackson State was leading FAMU. And then on the drive to try to score and take back the lead, there was another fumble, which led to another eventual score, which led to FAMU losing the game against Jackson State. Ball security has been an issue this season, and it came back to bite. Special teams, missed field goals. That's something that's so not normal at Florida A&M. So that also is a thing. And if you look at the score margin just right now, 24-21, that missed field goal would have helped, would have done something. So I mean, it hurts as a FAMU alum and as a FAMU fan. First and foremost, the 23 game home win streak is snapped. Haven't lost a game since 2018 in Bragg. I was a junior in college. So that's unfortunate. I know that Mississippi Valley, they're good to give a team an L every season, and I know that you recall the year that they did it to us. So Alabama A&M, they're good to give someone a loss, and they honored their teammate. Who unfortunately passed away a week ago. I don't want to get his name wrong. I think it's Ryan Quinney.
Yes, Ryan Quinney.
Yeah, Ryan Quinney, who unfortunately passed away. They honored their teammate in such a huge way. And I love my alma mater, but I've always told people that they're not unbeatable. They're not unbeatable. They have to go out every week and play like it's their last game. And I mean, they've got Bethune-Cookman, who is salivating at the fact that they lost to a team who isn't good. And then they're looking at and then after that they have Alabama A&M, whom I know for a fact is salivating and very excited to play them, especially now while the morale is low and everybody believes they're beatable. So I hate it for them. But I will say that, and I have the utmost respect for Coach Colsey. Coach Colsey played with my father at Florida State. Well, what I will say is that you've already, the 23 game home win streak is snapped. You cannot lose the Florida Classic. You cannot lose the Florida Classic.
Well, let me ask you this then. All right. So losing this game, obviously, you know what the rumblings have been. We've all seen them. But if they lost the Florida Classic and then and lose the game against A&M and finish 5-7, what do you think the prospects of regardless of how this season finishes, where do you think FAMU goes from here? Do you see a lot of changes?
I think that there could be changes in regards to offense, specifically like our OC. And I'm not the one that makes these decisions or could pass judgment on. That's AD Suggs' job. But I will say that there could be some changes or a push for changes just because of how the season is gone. And when you look at the roster and all of the talent that wasn't utilized, like Jeremiah Pruitt, Reese's Senior Bowl watch list, who wasn't played. When you look at just the manner in which these games have been lost, etc., there could be some changes coming to the coaching staff. But it just depends. As you know, it's not just as simple as, oh, we're going to fire this guy and find someone else. There's legal matters involved, contracts, buyouts, like all these different things. So it's not just as simple as, oh, we're going to get you out of here. So, I mean, we'll just really have to see what happens. But Florida A&M needs to win out.
Yeah, I truly concur. And, a lot of people who were on my show here on Wednesday, I have to give everybody their flowers. Those that picked it, hey, y'all had it. Y'all had it. People said it. They said that, you know what? I feel like this could be the time when Valley could come up and get one. And I was nervous that it could have been us next week. Now, that don't mean that I'm still sleeping good and feeling good because, Valley, they had this coming for a while. They had almost beaten Prairie View. They snapped the ball over the holder when they had a chance to tie it, and they had been playing some really, really tight or tough games and really pushing people. So, but shout out to Tajarian Williams because he was brilliant in this game. And Peasy, he called it. He said it right here. He said, BCU smelling blood. But something else Peasy said, and I'm going to find it. He said it somewhere. You said it somewhere, Peasy.
Oh wow! This whole time I was in the wrong. I'm just seeing all of these comments. I'm just now seeing all of these comments.
Yeah, here it is. He said they had no turnovers, and that that right there. That said the whole thing. They forced 3 turnovers, and then and they didn't commit any themselves. And when FAMU started to mount the rally, because it was 24-13 entering the fourth quarter, and FAMU scored to cut it to 24-21. Valley did what they needed to do to run that clock out. So I give to Jerry and Williams. I know that kid, he takes a lot of flack, around the SWAC, but that kid, this was his coming out, and he did really, really well. And also Nathan Rembert, who has pretty much been their best player the entire year. 7 catches, $130. So real good for Valley. I'm very happy for them that they got this win. Sorry, Ty. Sorry again.
Hey, listen, I'm a lover of HBCU football, to be honest. I'm a lover of HBCU football. And so, I mean, yes, it's disappointing, but at the same time, what a awesome feat for Valley. And as a reporter, I'm a sucker for a good story. So you lose your teammate, you have to play this team who's looked at as the big dogs, they're the reigning champions, and you go in and beat them on their home field. Then you snap the streak and get to honor them honor your teammate in such a huge way, and turning the tide and just showing people who you are as a team. I think that's great. Does it suck that it was my alma mater? Sure, but at the end of the day, I love HBCU football. And I'm looking at these comments over here with Israel and Teldrin, and yeah, those are some very, very valid comments. I hate that it's a Jackson Stater making comments.
This one here, he said overtime.
No, that is a huge thing. That is a huge thing. People are going to remember that. People really are going to remember that. And I just remember just yesterday being on Twitter and being on social media, I had to log off because I was looking at these national platforms report on the loss. And I'm like, man, y'all haven't said nothing about FAMU all year, and here y'all come now. So that's funny. That's hilarious.
Hey, everybody do what Teldrin said. Like the stream, y'all. Like the stream. Yeah, so what I want to turn to now, and I know this is what everybody really was interested in. All right. Now, I just had to throw this one up here on the fly, which is this. Let's talk about this, all right? Because we had it happen. We had it happen in Jackson. We had it happen in Montgomery with Jackson State and Alabama State. We also had it happen at the end of the North Carolina Central and Howard game. And we also had it happen in the CIAA championship game between Virginia State and Virginia Union. And this is brawls. Now, everybody here in the comments, I know that there's been a whole lot of commentary on this. People have had their feelings about this. People have been saying, passing blame, passing judgment, all these different things. Okay. Now, Ty, I want to start here with just your feelings about what has taken place. And then also, let's just kind of talk about what you think should be some of these steps forward.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I literally, it's so funny because I was actually talking to our DC, Coach Howard, about this. I was talking to him. We were talking about our upcoming game at Florida A&M. And I was like, I don't really think that the student section is going to be there. Whatever. We just got to talking about, just the energy and brag and all of that different kind of stuff. And we were talking about how messy it is because when you're on the field, the FAMU comes from this way, and then the visitor comes from this way to get into the the locker rooms at halftime. And I remember I was telling him that when I was a senior in college in 2019, I was literally stuck in the middle of the brawl between FAMU and North Carolina A&T. Not a lot of people remember that, but I was stuck in the middle of that brawl. And to make a long story short, I understand what it's like when emotions are heightened. I understand what it's like when, you know, these guys put their all into everything, or, you know, there's little petty moments or trash talk. I mean, all of the things. But I just think that even though fighting is common in football and sports in general, I more so have anger towards media, because it's not like my colleagues are beating down the door to cover these guys in any instance. You know, they're not beating the door down. Like, I haven't seen a national media yet come and talk to Carson Vinson with what he could potentially do. I haven't seen a lot of media go and talk to, you know, a lot of different guys who are projected to do all of these different things. But however, when it comes to stuff like this, you get like people, local, national, just broadcasting it all out there. And so, you know, I hate it. I think that I agree with Franklin K. Like, everybody has a job to do when it comes to making sure that these type of things don't happen or don't escalate. But at the same time, though, my anger is not even necessarily directed at the teams or players. It's more so directed at the people who broadcast this kind of stuff out to make our institutions look a certain kind of way. That pisses me off.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and I like this, I like your comment here, Franklin. The referees and coaches have to do a better job of controlling their team's emotions. And you know what? I think that where it really boils down to here, I think it boils down to first, it's got to be with the referees. Because when you're looking at this game, at the game that took place there, all three of them actually, okay? Alabama State last year, we know that they beat Jackson State for their homecoming and they planted a flag, right? Then also North Carolina Central, their worst game that they played all last year and the most inopportune time came when they lost at Howard. And Howard, you know, they took the spot from them. They went to the Celebration Bowl. And then also Virginia State and Virginia Union, that was a championship football game, and that was the second time that they had played during the year. I think that officials have to take a very strong position in the game. Now, you have where if you get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, it is a warning. You can be removed and ejected from the game if you have 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Now, in every game that we've watched, not even just the 3 that I mentioned, there are several games that take place where there's pushing and shoving, there's excessive trash talking, and then also I do want to put this out here for Jackson State fans, because I was really pissed off when I saw this. When they ripped Irv Mulligan's helmet off there at the end of the game, I thought that was another one that really should have gotten contained. So when you want to start controlling action, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and you got to really just call this stuff early, and you got to call it multiple times to set the standard to let these guys know that you cannot continue to do this kind of behavior throughout the game. And my other podcast group, my From the Hill podcast group, we had chatted. We had all said it way back in the second quarter. We said these boys are going to fight when the game is over. It was mounting. It was building. And I will also say this too, Ty and everybody. It does not matter who was fighting. Everybody's at fault, because it takes 2 to make a fight happen. Now, when you win a game, there's one way that you handle it. If you see the other team is hostile about it, the last thing you should do is continue to keep talking trash. Because when you keep talking trash and you already see that they're pissed off, and you know Alabama State, they needed to win this game or their season was over. You know, it's nothing to just walk off the field. I mean, I know sometimes the testosterone and the manliness in it, the machoism, you say, hey, I got to defend this. I'm no punk. I need to step forward. But sometimes, man, you got to think about it. You boys got 2 more games ahead of you, right? You guys got bigger things. And also Southern, this is something for Southern. When you take that field on Thanksgiving Saturday against Grambling, if you beat Grambling, you got to know that, hey, we got a SWAC championship game to play next week. Now, you know that the emotions are going to run high in these rivalry games, and you got to find a way to get off the field. Okay, Paris. So if you go on your side and another team follows you, should you not defend yourself? Here's my thing here. Or do you want to take this one, Ty? What do you think?
I mean, I think this is where security and the state troopers should get involved. However, I agree with everything that you're saying, but just in working team side this year and spending time with a lot of these guys, listening to their conversations, oh my God, they'd have no idea how to control or regulate their emotions for real. And so I can only imagine what it's like everywhere. What I love about Alabama A&M is the fact that we have, Dr. Slay, who works in athletics, and she is, I would say, like, athletics therapist, and she, helps young athletes and even coaches, GAs like myself, really, work on and regulate emotions, but that might not be the reality for everyone. And a lot of people might not know how to self-regulate. So that makes it difficult in instances like this. But I do think that in regards to Paris's question, it's the responsibility of, security, of coaches, and other team staff who are able to, get these guys calm so that they can, go on about their business.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on this too, I know that there are some people who said that the pregame or the postgame handshake line, they might want to consider foregoing it. Now, on this one, I think that the postgame handshake line, I think that, it is not everybody is bad on this, and brawls don't happen every game. It's not a very common thing, right? So I don't think that we need to go that far to say, hey, let's think about this post-game handshake line, guys. But I think that one side of this coin that we have to continue to remember is the referees can set the standard by calling some unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Just getting these guys under control, because the emotions run high, man. And especially when you get to these late season games when there's a lot on the line, you definitely got to be able to take control. So there's going to be some suspensions handed down, and like what Dave said, yep, now both schools about to get hit with the $25K. Yep. They're going to be paying that fine, paying that money. So, all right. So, Ty, I really enjoyed having you on here tonight. Hope you've enjoyed things. And yeah, so I know that you've got your content, and if anybody has not seen Ty's content at Alabama A&M, you definitely should check that out. Also, you're gonna be at the Celebration Bowl again, right?
I am. I've had a lot of great success and bright ideas with our Alabama A&M content. I hope those that have been able to watch it enjoy it. Even those who didn't go to Alabama A&M, please go follow our page and watch it. It's my goal to get our pages to 10,000 followers by the end of this athletic year, and we're on track to do so. I decided to dress up as a football player, and I put on pads and I did pre-practice with the guys. It was terrible. I'll never do it again. They were so excited to see me in the pads when they found out my identity, and they were like, oh, this is our big sister, we can rough her up. So that's exactly what they did. But yes, I will be doing the Florida Classic next week. That'll be my 3rd year in a row. It's a huge accomplishment for myself. I'm super excited to do that. So I will be at the Florida Classic, and then I will also be at the Celebration Bowl, like you said. And then there's just so much more to come on the year. I'm starting my podcast soon, and I'm really excited for that as well. So yeah, you guys follow me on my social media, Ty A. Floyd on Instagram and Ty Ali Floyd on Twitter.
Awesome. You know, I'm gonna have to make an appearance on that podcast. You know.
Oh yeah, of course. You're gonna love it. You're gonna.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, that's Ty Floyd, y'all. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, y'all.
All right. That's Ty Floyd, y'all. All right. So now, let's continue on with a few more things here in the show, y'all. So, briefly here, we'll talk about South Carolina State because this is going to be the opponent of the SWAC champion. So, now, MEAC champion, they're going to come in next week with their senior day, and they're going to finish out their schedule. Now, one thing of note, once South Carolina State finishes its regular season next week, they will be off for 1 week. Actually 2 weeks. They'll be off on the 30th and also the weekend of the SWAC championship game. So these guys will have 2 weeks to get themselves recovered and refreshed while, as you see here, this game will take place on the 7th, and the winner of this game will have 1 week to prepare. So it's vital that that these guys have a plan in place. Now, as I said for Southern, they have a bye week this week headed into the Bayou Classic, and Jackson State heads on down the road to take on Alcorn. So I know that there's been some things that people have said about both teams. Well, actually, for Jackson State, they've been saying maybe they should just rest some guys. But, you know, man, it's the Soul Bowl. So, you know, I think that in the Soul Bowl, I think you gotta really think about doing what you need to do to get a win, because Jackson State's gonna have a bye week anyway after it. So, you know, I don't know. I'm sure that everybody here, they've got their thoughts about that. So he said, ain't no rest. You're right. Ain't no rest. All right. So let's hand out the ride tokens this week, y'all. All right. So y'all know, those that are just watching the show first time, your team has to win for you to make this ride token list. All right. And we give out 2 offensive, 1 defensive, and a special teams. So my first offensive guy this week, Jamari Taylor, North Carolina Central. This guy pretty much took the game over against Howard, and to the tune of 24 rushes, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 6 receptions for 78 yards. So 284 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamari Taylor, the first ride token for offense. My second ride token on offense, and it gives me great pleasure for the first time to welcome Mississippi Valley State to this list. Nathan Rembert, 7 catches, 130 yards, and a very impressive touchdown on a great throw from Jatarian Williams. Nathan Rembert, second ride token for offense. Also, my defensive ride token. This was an easy one for me. Jackson State fans, you heard his name called a lot yesterday. Robert McDaniel of Jackson State, 14 tackles, 3 for loss, 1 sack, and a forced fumble. That is a very impressive game in an impressive environment in a game that you had to win. So Robert McDaniel, big shout out to you for that awesome performance. And then also Victor Barbosa from my team, Alabama A&M, 4 for 4 field goals, and we needed all 4 of those field goals in a 22-17 win against Grambling. All right. So those are my ride tokens for this week. And I see you guys are just going crazy. Looking here in the look at here. He said, Homer. Hey, I got a Jackson State guy on the list, man. I got your best defensive player from yesterday on the list. Homer. Hey, Big Valley. Valley gets on this list, man. I was excited. I said, Nathan Rembert, as soon as the game went final, I said, Nathan Rembert, you are getting a ride token. Big shout out to y'all, Valley. Okay, y'all, here we go. Next week. Here's our SWAC schedule for next week. All right. This is the final full schedule that the SWAC has this season. All right. So taking place on the Griot, you have Alabama A&M on the road visiting Valley. All right. So that's on the Griot. And that's an early kick, noon in the South, 1 p.m. Eastern. All right. Then you've got Texas Southern taking on UAPB. This was an exciting game last year where Texas Southern got off to a 34-7 lead. And then UAPB came roaring back and got the win down there in Houston. So they play again. That game will be on HBCU Go. Then in Montgomery, you've got Prairie View closing out its season, taking on Alabama State. That game will be on ESPN Plus. Then you've got the Soul Bowl down there on the reservation. You got Jackson State going down there to play at Alcorn. That game will be on ESPN Plus. And that should be a very lively crowd down there on the reservation. I'm sure some of you in the comments will be there front and center, loud and proud. And then last but not least on the SWAC schedule, you got the Florida Classic in Orlando with Florida A&M going to take on Bethune-Cookman. And that game will also be on ESPN Plus. That is your SWAC schedule for week number 13. And Paris says, we definitely not taking an L to Alcorn. He said definitely. And he said, AKA the No One Cares Bowl. Hey, plenty of good seats should be available. You could buy a ticket the day of the game. I think you'll have a nice seat. All right. And then last but not least here, you've got the week 13 schedule there in the MEAC. Once again, South Carolina State, they clinched it yesterday. So you've got a big game for North Carolina Central. They have, they have pretty slim hopes about FCS playoffs, but they have hopes nevertheless. They can finish 8-3 as they head to take on the Delaware State Hornets. Howard Bison, they will finish the rest of their schedule, finishing up at Morgan State. And then you got Norfolk State in what may be the finale for Dawson Odoms as Norfolk State's head coach. That remains to be seen. They finish up at South Carolina State, the MEAC champ, on their senior day. All three games there will be on ESPN Plus. All right. Now back to the SWAC schedule for everybody. I see some different things. I see Let's Go PV. He said they taking an L in Montgomery. Hey, it said win or loss. Know that where Port Gibson State will be after the game at the hey, the BCU Classic. Hey, Bethune-Cookman, they're gonna come down there. They're gonna come down there with some confidence, man. Gonna be some confidence. Hey, we'll see how that goes there in week number 13. All right. And then last but not least, we got these standings updated. So you can see Jackson State has clinched the East, and you see that they have a chance on Saturday to run the table in the regular season, going 8-0 if they can pull it off at Alcorn. And then you can see everybody else finishing up. All right. Again, Valley. 1 in the win column. Let's make sure that 1 stays there because my boys got to play y'all this week. And then in the West, you got the champions, Southern, with a 6-1 record with their bye week, and they'll have a chance to finish at 7-1 and a very impressive 8-4 record headed into the SWAC championship game. You have Alcorn. They have a winning season clinched. So they would like to finish at 7-5. You've got Jackson, you got Texas Southern, and then you look at PV and Grambling looking to finish with winning records. All right. So that is the SWAC West. And then you see here in the MEAC, you look at the champions, South Carolina State, and then you see North Carolina Central with a chance to finish at 8-3. All right. So more of the comments. Said JSU and SU will have one loss. Have a loss headed to the SWAC championship game. Said JSU will be 7-1. Hey, we know the Soul Bowl, man. We know Soul Bowl and also Bayou Classic coming up. You know, of course, I'll talk about that next week. We know how those games will go. We know how those things roll every single year. So, but you know, this season here is winding down. So we're at the last full week of the regular season, and then we'll head on to you know, the 3 games that they have on the schedule next week, which I'll talk about that, and then you got SWAC championship games. So lastly tonight, I just want to say again to everybody that watches me and tunes into this show, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. This stuff is this is really, really exciting, really, really fun to talk about HBCU football and sports with everybody. I just invite you all to hit the like button, and also subscribe. And then also, I will be back on Wednesday with another show, Wild Picks on Wild Wednesday, where we're going to go through the games that I talked about right here. We'll talk about the SWAC games, and, you know, everybody will tell me what you think prediction wise about some of these games right here. And then also, as we get into our show next week, we will begin to talk a little bit more about the SWAC championship game. And yeah, I like that. Hit the like button, y'all. 33 likes. Make sure everybody hits that like button. You know, make sure you do that. And those that'll watch this recording, make sure you do that as well. Appreciate y'all. So, hey man, I appreciate you, Iz. Thank you. Said still ain't invited me on the show yet. Okay, all right. Here's this. All right, I'll give you this. Okay. I'm gonna do a show that is a preview of the SWAC championship game. And also when we head to Celebration Bowl. So you'll have 2 opportunities that I can get you on the show, okay? Because one thing I definitely want to do is I want to get some of the viewers to come on, and, you know, some that just want to just come by just for a few minutes, talk your talk, say what you want to say, right? And we can do that. All right. So I appreciate y'all, man. This is great times as always. And I will see you on Wild Wednesday with Wild Picks with Wild Wayne. And special thanks to Ty Floyd, and special thanks to everybody. All right. God bless y'all. See y'all next time.
Thank you for joining us on the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.